Alright then, let's finally see if that goddamn mustache was actually worth it. Hey everyone, David here. So, full disclaimer, there's a strong possibility that this is going to be my last movie review in quite some time because there's nothing really major coming out from now until possibly The Predator. So hopefully you guys will start seeing a few more classic reviews and stuff like that. So, to commemorate it, let's go ahead and tackle the latest entry in the Mission Impossible series. It's kind of impossible to believe that we are now in movie number 6. But then it's a little bit more cohesive when you learn that this franchise has literally been going down for the past 22 years, all kicked off in 1996 with Tom Cruise dangling from the ceiling in Mission Impossible from Brian De Palma, and then John Woo took over with some crazy ass silliness in Mission Impossible 2, and then just like literally 6 years later, so it took a while for them to kind of recover from that, with J.J. Abrams taking over in Mission Impossible 3. Brad Bird had his take on it with Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol that kind of revamped the series in a way. 3 was cool, but then Ghost Protocol even pushed it further beyond what they were like, wow, this is actually rather neat. And then Christopher McQuarrie, who was a long-time writer, took over the reins, and now he kind of returns, being the first director, I guess, to be a return to form with the Mission Impossible movie, like actually directing a second film. So can he top off Rogue Nation, which was actually a very decent action flick? Well, it looks like they're doubling down here with Mission Impossible Fallout. That's meant to be a much more, I don't want to say darker, but much more high-stakes entry where you don't know if certain missions should be accepted by the likes of Special Agent Ethan Hunt. The mission this time around has to do with a possible attack on an agricultural line in one of the most important borders of the planet that could probably taint an awful lot of biggest countries' water supplies. And going along that line, there's some secret espionage going down and some spy stuff, some double agents, a whole rigmarole of going back and forth between two different people that are, have connections. Anyways, the plot gets a little convoluted, I will admit. It's kind of interesting to see kind of this espionage going down and seeing the trading between hands and covert operations and things like that. However, the more that I kind of break it down, the more the film kind of acknowledges that maybe we've kind of are starting to spin the wheels a little bit when it comes to the plot. It's kind of interesting that seeing these characters have dialogue with each other about, you know, who's betraying who and what intelligence falls under what. It's always cool, but it was starting to kind of remind me similar dialogue that I kind of enjoy, but on a guilty pleasure level, the likes of that I see from shows like CSI or Law and Order, where having these characters kind of banter between one another, discussing the politics of war, espionage, covert operations, is cool within the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, I just don't feel like that's what exactly I'm going to remember first and foremost when it comes to this most recent Mission Impossible movie. Just like when I would move from episode to episode with shows like CSI or Law and Order, within the episode it was cool, but then next week came around and I was more interested in that episode, and I kind of forgot about the last episode. So unfortunately, I can say that probably the weakest part about Mission Impossible Fallout is that even though they were really teasing the possibilities of the mission being high stakes and everybody that Ethan Hunt has ever cared about is going to be threatened in this one by a British villain. That's kind of insane and Joker-esque. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we've done that once or twice already in the series. So I will admit that my harshest criticism will be towards the main big picture material of the film itself. The smaller picture, like I said, the little plans and what exactly they have to do to get the bad guys, and the little tips, the little tricks and stunts that they kind of pull off on a smaller scale, especially anything that has to do with some of the more extravagant stuff, the extravagant lifestyle, the spy deal going on with the plastic, realistic masks and the voice translators and then the tracking devices and all that stuff that you admittedly have to suspend your disbelief somewhat, is still kind of cool. Once you kind of feel yourself kind of let go from realism, it's fun to jump into this world with the masks and be like, oh, how cool will it be? And also feel that haha moment when you feel like either the bad guy has the wool pulled over their eyes, or even the good guys have the wool pulled over their eyes by the bad guys. It's always kind of fun to see that go about, like I said, from scene to scene. But in the grand picture sort of things, the whole plot could have been revamped. The funny thing is, though, is that while seeing some of these trailers, I kind of had a taste for that, but I was holding on to some form of hope that I was going to get surprised. But the one thing that I was holding out humongous expectations for were going to be these stunts, because Christopher McQuarrie, the director, you can tell that this guy is a purist of traditional stunt work and stunt photography. And he, along with Tom Cruise, they had a mission of their own, and that was to use as little CGI as humanly possible with their movies. And that's actually kind of been a little bit of the staple for the past few Mission Impossible movies, not just with McQuarrie, but also with Brad Bird when Tom Cruise was dangling off that goddamn skyscraper in Dubai, and then in Rogue Nation where he was hanging off the side of an airplane as it was taking off, and they kind of anteed up the stakes just a little bit more on dear old Tom Cruise's life here in this movie, where he is dangled from a helicopter, he is going on some massive runs across rooftops, and then he also has a halo jump off of the back of a B-52, and it's all captured in real time. And having seen some of the behind-the-scenes footage of these ridiculous stunts prior to seeing this movie, and then going in and seeing this movie in a large-scale format, unfortunately I did not manage to see it in IMAX, so I wasn't able to see the bigger picture. But I at least managed to catch it in Cinemark XD, and it was still a very decent visual that had me just kind of gripping onto my thighs. And I knew that he was going to be okay, especially on some of the earlier stunts, because you know that they're happening earlier in the movie, so you can't kill off your main character just yet. However, seeing him in a situation where the way that the lighting and the camera work is kind of working in tangent to kind of put me in that situation along with Tom Cruise and making me believe that he was genuinely there and not CG is just enough for me to go, shit, I know that this movie is already 2.5 hours, so I do think it could have been cut back a little bit on the extra material because it does deserve a little bit of a trim. And like I mentioned, the story is kind of been there, done that. But seeing how crazy these stunts were, I don't know if maybe one of these days I might have just a little bit too much spare time on my hands, and maybe I'll pay the extra money to catch these stunts in IMAX because they were just that ridiculously done. And so I have to give major credits to Christopher McQuarrie, the director, the cinematographers for having to deal with the constant focus pulling on some of these stunts, especially that halo jump, and of course to the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Cruise. Say what you want about his private life. I understand that he could be a little nuts, but I think it takes a little bit of those balls to go on the crazy shit that he has done so far, and I have to give him my respects for doing that and for putting life and limb there for the sake of our entertainment on the big screen. And I think to some extent that's a bit of an art form. But hey, I'm not exactly gonna let the rest of the cast go unnoticed. The rest of the cast is kind of returned from prior Mission Impossible movies, and they're still good. And that's the biggest compliment that I can give him. No major development there. Characters such as Ving Rhames' Luther or Simon Pegg's Benji, a couple of past flames from Ethan Hunt's life, and then a couple of other side characters that were recently introduced like Alec Baldwin, Angela Bassett as a CIA operative. They've all come back and they're still filling in those roles, and they haven't exactly changed that much. They're enjoyable to see on screen, but they didn't really bring that much to the table. The only slight little foil that I'll have to give some kudos to is Henry Cavill as this other character, August Walker. I guess there was a reason to have that mustache, even though I still am on the foreground on the front that he could have easily have shaved it for those goddamn reshoots. Therefore, we wouldn't have all those folks yelling out for the Snyder Cut. Let it go, it's done. But they could have easily just shaved that off and then put on a prosthetic, a fake mustache. It wouldn't have made that much of a difference because he was at least able to carry some weight with his character without getting into too much of the plot twists and details. He was a decent presence, a rather good presence on screen, both with his physicality, the way he was able to throw down with some of those action scenes, particularly one taking place in a bathroom where you felt every punch. The movie's PG-13, and yet I felt like it was even more violent than some R-rated movies because you can just feel like the bruises kind of gushing underneath the skin whenever punches are landed by some of these characters, in particular Cavill's characters. That shotgun reload of his arms that you see in the trailer, that's not there for no reason. He means it. And another thing that I won't necessarily go unnoticed is that McQuarrie, the director, he wrote it as well, and you can tell that he wasn't just making a mindless action film. He kind of wants to fill it up a little bit with some substance and not let it go for granted. And I'm a little, appreciative that they were able to bring that to Ethan Hunt with those past people in his life, particularly his wife, his estranged wife, as well as this new character that got introduced in, I believe, Ghost Protocol or Rogue Nation, played by Rebecca Ferguson. And it's cool that they gave these characters dynamics. That's what makes those stakes really nail-biting, is because you kind of care about these people. And Ethan Hunt, he's a cool guy. He gets people put in danger, but you know that he's going to have your back at least. He's at least going to make some effort to have your back. So McQuarrie paid attention to these details, and it was cool that he still kind of kept them going on here in this movie to give, like I said, the movie a little bit more depth than your traditional blockbuster. But I think that in the long run, like I said, it contributed to that whole been there, done that quality. And also, like I said, I was really kind of, I don't want to say nervous, but just a little cautious going into the movie, knowing that on my ticket stub it said right there that the movie is 147 minutes, and I don't think we've ever had a Mission Impossible movie go that far into a running time. So I was thinking that it was going to get a little bloated, and I do think that they could have cut back on a little bit of those scenes at one point. In fact, most of the time, I'm never able to find that sweet spot to go pee, but I really had to go really bad, and there were a couple of open opportunities in this movie for you to be able to check out for at least 30 seconds to go hang it out, go to the bathroom, and then come back, or sit down. I had to hang it out, but if you have to sit down, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Still, this being the last official summer blockbuster film of the year, I say that this is actually one of the finer films to kind of go out on. It might not be one of the best movies of the year that could make my top 10 list by the end of the year. However, it is one of the best action movies of the year thus far, because it pays both homage and respects, and also reinvigorates the action movie genre by actually delivering on some genuine action with as little CG as possible. And I don't feel like an awful lot of movies are going to be able to capture those kind of golden days ever again. I mean, those genuine movies from the 90s that would have cool stunt pieces. You remember watching a Jackie Chan movie and going like, oh my god, he actually did that? Well, Tom Cruise may not be doing it in the martial art form sense, but he's at least doing it with some of the crazy ass things that he kind of puts himself upon. And at the age of like 50 something, you gotta give some respects to that. So I'm gonna be giving Mission Impossible Fallout a decent 8 out of 10. Story could have been a little better, but at least the returning characters still keep a smile on my face with their humor and with their camaraderie. And again, McQuarrie along with Tom Cruise, it looks like they formed that perfect chemistry to delivering groundbreaking entertainment in the form of some ridiculous stunts that try to give you the genuine article. So please let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of Mission Impossible Fallout if you have seen it. Let me know what you guys think of these crazy stunts, and what do you think they should do in the next one to be able to top themselves off. I would say dangle from the Eiffel Tower with nothing but his teeth. Tom Cruise. He got his teeth reworked. Pretty sure they're strong enough. Anyways, like and share this video to show you guys support, and also make sure to subscribe for more of those classic reviews that I got cooking. Until next time, guys, check you next time. I don't know if at this point they managed to incorporate mocap, but the way they run, or the way it's like they didn't get the proper people to interpret some of these folks. There's a couple scenes where Peter has to run, and he just has like the most wimpiest run, and it just did not translate very well.
Parker! That's the third call I got about giant lizards running amok in Gramercy Park. Giant lizards! Pronto!